Good vibrations off the water.
So, yeah. So, welcome to the line, Travis. Why don't you tell us a little bit about, how you got here,
Yeah.
floating on the river with me?
Well, I've seen some of my customers and friends of mine that have been on your podcast in the past here, Matt Eshelman, Keaton Turner, people that I've worked with or helped out in the past. And kind of we got together when your assistant contacted me and said, hey, we got some time. Let's meet up. And I was like, yeah, let's. I'd love to shed some light on that. The explosives industry actually exists
Yeah.
and it's not illegal. Okay. So that's another thing is a lot of times when people say, what do you do for a living? And I'm like, well, you could say I'm a blaster or, I'm in the explosives industry. But really, um, it's just about, I blow stuff up for a living.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's all legal.
That should
and
totally
it's,
be on your card. I'm just
yeah,
saying.
blow shit up
Yeah.
for a living.
Yeah.
That should be on my card. Might be a little bit easier, but no, it's just something that people don't in the everyday world when they're driving on roadways. The bridge behind us here, these
Yeah.
things aren't just made.
Yeah.
We have to start somewhere, and drilling and blasting is the start of the process.
Yeah.
And we blow up rock, and it's made into different building products, and we're a part of building America. And the explosives are driving around on the roadways every day, just like fuel, just
Yeah.
like propane, and people just don't realize it.
Yeah.
But we got to bring some. I like what you're doing with all the trades and things, and just bringing light to different things that people don't know exist, and they can go to work for, Dyno Nobel, Wampum Hardware, which is a 50% joint venture with Dyno Nobel, that does drilling and blasting work all over Western Pennsylvania, Ohio, West Virginia, Indiana, Michigan.
Jeez.
But this stuff is going on all over the U.S. and Canada, and the world, really.
Yeah.
We're building things everywhere. So people just don't realize everything that an explosive does. They just look at maybe the bad things they would maybe hear.
Right.
But just things like toothpaste, paint, the little powder, the white powder that's in like a wrapper so your bubble gum doesn't stick to the wrapper, or your
Right.
candy. Those things are crushed
Right.
stone.
Right.
Like, it's kind of mind-boggling.
I literally just sat down with a company in the aggregate industry, and they were talking about how it's the foundation of America. And he was telling me that, the average American, he says, consumes, I forget how much aggregate he said that the average American consumes. And I thought I was going to catch him. And so I made a wisecrack, and I was like, well, what do you mean by consume? You talk about eating it? And he goes, yeah, they can eat it. And talked about the different things that aggregate is in. And it's really fascinating, like you said. And blasting is really interesting to me because it literally brings things to the surface. And that's what we're talking about. Whether it's lifting the view of the skilled trades, no matter what trade it is, we're talking about bringing things to the surface. And we so take for granted. I don't know if it's a United States thing or if it's a world thing, but if we're not actively involved with it, we take for granted the things that get us there. I remember when I first started driving, I had an Atlas in my car. And a few years ago here, I was on a job in Philly and on some back roads, and my phone died, which had my GPS. And I can't believe I'm going to acknowledge this online. But I had to go buy a charger for my phone because the roads that I were on were so complicated I couldn't figure out how to get home. Where years ago, I was aware of that because I had to be in order to get where I needed to go. I think that a lot of times that we start to take things for granted if we don't have to be aware of them. And it doesn't mean that they're not there. And a matter of fact, they're hugely important to the lives that we live and the lives that we enjoy. And that's why I'm really glad that you're sitting down here and having an honest conversation with me about what you guys do, because I think a lot of people do take it for granted. And they don't realize what goes into, and a lot of people don't realize in the trades, Mike Rowe likes to say safety's third. Mm-hmm. And I love this statement because first, you got a job you got to do. You got to go out and you got to make a paycheck. Second, you have to get it done regardless of the situation. And then third, you want to be safe. And it's like, we all have a job that we need to do, and we need to make money to do it, and then we need to be safe. That's what we need to do. And people don't realize that, and I'm not trying to over embellish this, but people risk their lives. Explosives are dangerous. And it's like, in the trade specifically, I don't think that people realize the danger that sometimes is there that isn't there, but yet they're providing an ability for you to live your life, and people aren't even aware of it. So
It's one of those things that, um, being in this industry, and there's a lot of these industries, but I haven't lived in them. So
right,
until you walk a day in their shoes, you don't really realize how impactful it is. And people can say, "Well, why do you do that? Like, what got you into it, or things?" It's like until you build a project and you see the fruits of your labor,
yeah,
So just say in a quarry situation, or in a construction environment, you're there while it's still dirt,
yeah,
or it's just a flat quarry bench, and now you've blown it up, and now you're seeing the haul and what it's making. And sometimes you don't actually see those things, but in a construction site, sometimes you're blowing up the dirt and or the rock, and then you're seeing that a couple years later, you're seeing, you drive by and there's that school,
yeah,
that hospital, those
yeah,
things. It's like, man, we are really building what the, as the population is growing and other things, we're actually doing something.
yeah,
And when you're driving around with your kids or your wife or girlfriend or whatever it may be, you're like driving by pointing out all the places that you worked.
yeah,
And yeah, it's one of those things where it's a blessing and a curse that in our business, we have to travel.
yeah,
We have to drive around, and there isn't a quarry right beside another quarry typically. So it's an hour
yeah,
and a half.
yeah,
It's 2 hours in the truck to go to work, and you work all day after that 2 hour commute or hour and a half commute, and then you work all day, and then it's 8 seconds or 3 seconds, and the blast is over.
yeah,
So then you get that kind of adrenaline rush in our business
yeah.
of the anticipation, and then after it goes well, the excitement of, whew, okay, it's on to tomorrow.
I've been on jobs, and that anticipation permeates outward because everybody on the job site knows when a blast is happening,
Oh yeah.
and we're all trying to get an angle where we can see it because it's just cool, man. I mean, it's just forgive me for saying it this way, but it's a really badass job. It really is, and I've been on jobs where it went the way it was supposed to, and I've been on jobs where it didn't go the way it was supposed to, and it's really cool to see in both scenarios, especially when I'm not the one responsible for blasting. Yeah,
Yeah, until you're the one that has that gut feeling of it's your responsibility and things. That's something that the blasters um, don't get, I think, the amount of credit they should.
yeah,
It's such a skilled trade,
yeah,
and different states have different licensing and things. But when you are a good blaster, you're the blaster in charge, is what we call it. Okay, and I think that's something that needs to be elevated
yeah,
in the realm of, like I said, we're first in, and sometimes the drillers are the first ones drilling the holes, and they don't get the credit they deserve lots of times. And then the blasters right after that, and the truck drivers bringing the explosives. I mean, we're not driving around potato chips. And no
yeah,
offense to the potato chip drivers around here, but we're driving explosives,
yeah,
hazardous materials on the road every day
yeah,
by the thousands of pounds. And it's a really a cool thing to say, if you get an opportunity to talk to your grandkids or your kids or other people, while you're coaching different sporting teams and things and participating in the community. When you say, "What do you do?" And you say, "Well, yeah, we blow stuff up for a living," and it's not only a cool job. You said it's a badass
yeah,
job.
yeah,
Um, it's a respectable job,
yeah, yeah.
career.
It is, and I would like I would tend to believe that, like most skilled trades that people don't realize, is you can make a good living.
Oh yeah.
You can make a good living, and I would just challenge. There's been a lot of promotion in the skilled trades industry to be like, oh, you can make six figures, or you can make this, or you can make that. If there's one thing that I could say is that it's not always about how much you can make, but you talk about the lead blaster, or
Hmm.
the blaster in charge, and it's
Hmm.
like, and then you talk about the truck driver, you talk about the driller, you talk about, in all of these things that we do in the skilled trades, it is a team of people.
Oh, yeah.
And for me, it has always been about who are the people that I'm working alongside? Who is the team of people that I'm working with? Because you can get paid really good money and work with a team that is toxic. And I'm telling you from experience, it will not be worth it. It will not be worth it. And it's interesting in the skilled trades industry that there's no one job that builds what we need to live.
Mm-hmm.
We all have to come together, electricians, plumbers, drywallers, carpenters, everybody. And, you talked about Matt Eshelman, he loves to say that they're the first boots on the ground and the last boots to leave. And I think that when we all come together to do a project and we can work as a team overall in the skilled trades, that makes a huge difference. And it also makes it that we can actually make money, because that means that things flow better, for sure. So tell us a little bit about, Travis, like Dyna Nobel, and just for people, because like this is the first time I've actually seen your name, and I've worked with some of the companies that you guys are partners in or own. And so you're not out there like screaming from the rooftops. Tell us a little bit about Dyna Nobel.
Okay, so Dyna Nobel is one of the major manufacturers of explosives, detonators, those things, and they provide drilling and blasting services in certain locations, and in others, they go through a distributor.
Okay.
And an end user. So Wampum Hardware is a 50-50 joint venture with Dyna Nobel. So in a certain part, like I rattled off about 6 states that Wampum Hardware does the work. In the eastern part of the state where we're sitting right now, Main Drilling and Blasting does that work for Dyna Nobel. And Dyna Nobel supports with the logistics and the manufacturing of everything and distribution.
Let's go back a little bit, because your LinkedIn profile says Wampum Hardware.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
So when you first messaged us, I'm like, so he sells hammers and nails? So you have to explain to us a little bit about Wampum Hardware.
Yes.
And how that means that you blow stuff up.
Okay, so this is actually Wampum Hardware's 120th anniversary year.
This year?
This year, yes.
Happy anniversary, Wampum Hardware.
That's right, exactly. The Davis family has run Wampum Hardware. They're in their 5th generation. And about a year and a half ago, Wampum Hardware, the Davises, who sometimes I competed with when I worked for Main Drilling and Blasting, and then also supported when I worked for Dyna Nobel. Dyna Nobel came to me, who I was working for in Tennessee.
Yeah.
And running some things in an area for them, Tennessee, Alabama, Georgia, and Florida. And they said there's an opportunity with the Davis family, to which we knew each other. And we got together, and I'm up here in Western PA, Ohio, Indiana, West Virginia, and Michigan, helping that family, move things forward, bring some new excitement, energy to what they're doing, and have been doing successfully for many decades.
Yeah.
But it started out...
120 years is a long time.
So 120 years ago, they started out as a hardware store.
Okay.
Selling farm implement stuff and fencing and nails and hammers and everything else. But then also, they had black powder and safety fuse on the shelf and dynamite. So over the years that went by...
I don't think you can go to Home Depot and buy dynamite. I could be wrong, but
Not anymore, unless you have an ATF license. but anyway, that's how they evolved. And as a good business would evolve, they would see what they're selling the most of and what the customer's demanding. Yeah. And they started to transition away from a hardware store to an explosives company.
Wow.
So that's how they saw what the customer was wanting and demanding. And just like Blackline, I'm sure there's different things that now you are into that you never thought you'd be into. You never thought you'd be sitting on the river
doing a podcast?
Yeah, that's exactly
not what I thought I would be doing.
Right. Yeah. But I mean, we got to listen to our customers. And I think that's what Wampum Hardware has done a really good job of. And so is Dyna Nobel. But Dyna Nobel is not one of the only manufacturers of explosives. There's Austin Powder, there's Orica, there's Maxam, there's NEX. There's other ones that maybe I shouldn't be bringing up any of my competitors, but we all do a good job. We all we're all looking for good people, okay? And if there's ever...
the stakes are pretty high in your industry to do a good job and find the right people. That's just the reality. Like you said, nothing against the potato chip. I love potato chips, just to be clear. Grandma Utz The brown bag. Those are the best potato chips.
I'm a
But
Diefenbach guy, but okay.
okay, well, you got to try them if you haven't tried them. And some French onion dip. Yeah, that's a guilty pleasure of mine. But all of that to say, it's like there are different levels of risk,
Yes.
and the stakes are much higher for you guys than they are for even me as an electrician.
Yeah, I mean, every industry talks about safety, and you brought up
Yeah.
Mike Rowe and talking about safety's third, or if it's first, or however you want to look at it, and your whatever's written on your wall of your corporate offices and things like that. But I think it's all taking it to the field,
Yeah.
and actually living it.
Yeah.
And somebody said to me, somebody that I really enjoy working with right now, has been in the business about 40 years. He always says, look at the boots of the people you're going to talk to, and if you go into a conference room, look at the boots, and direct your conversation to people who actually know what's going on. Because if the boots are dirty, or the
I'm gonna
boots are
cover up my boots.
well, this is a little different environment right
Yeah.
now, but if you go into that job trailer and the guy's boots are clean, like, you got to direct the guy that's actually doing the work.
Yeah.
And
That's exactly
and just
right.
because somebody's boots are dirty, and I know you kicked off on this on a couple of your other podcasts, but I mean, you go in somewhere to a Sheetz or a Get-Go, if you're out Western PA, or a Wawa, or one of these places, and you see somebody with safety color on, like I'm wearing a safety color now, or the bright green safety color, or just a little bit of mud on their boots, or a little bit of cement, or
Yeah.
something. It's like, don't look down on it.
That's right.
I mean, it's I kind of wear it as a badge of honor. I mean, there's some days I wish I wasn't on a Zoom call, a Teams call, it's in a conference room. I wish I was out there doing some of the things I used to do, because your phone's constantly ringing and things. So I think there's other things, reasons to get into this trade. Like you
Right.
said, there's risk management, there's
Yeah.
safety, there's insurance. I mean, there's so many things that if you want to get into these businesses, I would say that to suggest for people to start at the ground level, start out seeing where you can labor in high school or while you're in college. I mean, you might be going for a different degree, a bachelor's in whatever it may be, but like, if you were going to be insurance, what better thing to start out with and say, hey, I was in drilling and blasting.
Right.
Like, that's pretty insurance heavy industry to be in.
I can imagine.
If you want to get into safety, wouldn't
Yeah.
it be a good idea to get into this? Like, what about engineers?
Yeah.
Civil engineers, have an internship and have that on your resume. And you know what? You may just be like me. I have a marketing degree from Bloomsburg.
Come on.
And
now I understand why you were talking with Horst. You guys were connecting on marketing.
we were
Yeah.
connecting on marketing. But I got into the explosives industry, and it got through my dad, who was in
Yeah.
drilling. And I got into it with him over 20 years ago, and it just got in my blood. I love the explosives industry. I mean, I have a hard hat sticker that says I love explosives, and another Yeti too that says the same thing. And it's like, it really is. Now, it doesn't have to be dyno. It doesn't have to be wampum hardware. I want to be a part of making a movement toward what we do, because there's so many gray-haired, bald-haired people in our business that we need to bring this young blood in and get excited about it. And what better thing to get excited about than explosives and helping these customers move dirt, move rock.
I think that's one of the big things why the trades industry needs marketing, needs communication about what we do, because I feel like we've done a disservice to our industry in communicating what we do, because people don't know. Like, I don't have anything against college, but I do have an issue. I take issue with the fact that I don't think we communicate education equally. Like, I'm managing an organization, but it all started with me picking up a screwdriver and a bucket of tools and learning a trade. And then I learned, oh, this is how, like, and I think the best thing about the skilled trades industry is it will take you places that you wouldn't go. It doesn't mean that you don't go to college and you don't have a degree.
Mm-hmm.
But I would argue that that opportunity to learn some of that stuff in the trade helped you in who you are today to be able to do what you're doing. Like, and I think it's something, like I'm sitting here doing a podcast with you. I would have never thought that when I was sitting and taking classes on how to figure out, voltage drop. So that's not something. But the point is, if you get out there and you get your boots dirty, you get some experience. And here is this one is free of charge. This will help you in life. If you work hard, the sky is the limit. It doesn't matter what trade you're in. If you're a hard worker and you're given 110% and you have that grit and you're pushing through, I mean, you tell me, people in your organization that get promoted and grow in the business, even maybe they don't climb the ladder, but maybe they are essential to your team.
Mm-hmm.
They're the people that work hard.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I would say you got to show your effort. You got to show
Yeah.
you're trustworthy, and you're gonna do what you said you were gonna do.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and the rest of the skills and the licensing and the apprenticeship and things like that, the people will give you more as you prove you can do what we gave you to do the first time.
Right.
And then if you want to ask for things to do, that's another thing that's really great, because you don't have a lot of people that come and ask for, hey, they ask questions, but they don't ask for more a lot of times. They sit back and wait. And I think that's something that's there. I think the other thing, other than hard work, is honesty.
Mm-hmm.
In my position now, I've seen that being honest with the customer when you're bidding work,
Mm-hmm.
it's not always about the number. It's generating that relationship. And can you have an honest conversation with the customer and say, hey, I'm not begging for this job. I'm not asking to be last look or anything like that. The reason I'm calling you for this job is because I need this job.
Yeah.
There's times in business when
That's the
we
truth.
owned our family business that I need this job.
Yeah.
If I don't get this job, there's going to be maybe some difficult conversations that have to be had at the shop, that you're cut back to 40, or you're being laid off for a little bit of time.
Sorry. You just said, and this is something the rest of the world should understand about the trades. You said you're cut back to 40, meaning 40 hours a week.
Yes. Yeah. Well, some people would laugh at that or cringe at that because, it talks about a work-life balance and all those things. And at times that's something can be attained in our industry as well. I mean, we get up early and we get done a little bit sooner. The shots at a quarry are done at noon, typically.
Yeah.
Unless there's some other, town ordinance or something against it. So we're getting out early, and we're getting up early, and going on with other things. So you can have that work-life balance in the afternoons and the evenings and things like that. Maybe help with your kids, and I almost said deal with your kids or deal with your wife, but that wouldn't have been something we'd have to cut out of this thing.
I'm not
since
touching
it's
that
live.
one.
So
I mean, I'll touch.
I'm going to be in trouble.
Kids,
I'm going to be in trouble.
Yeah.
But no, it's just
my wife has to deal with me.
But I just think that having those honest conversations with your employees, with your customer, I've seen that's paid me back tenfold, because there's definitely been times where I needed that account, or I needed that to prove what we could do.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's something that sometimes things happen, and we're fearful if we're honest with someone about something, that they're going to use it against us. I speak a lot about honest conversations, but it is still a struggle sometimes when you're fearful to decide to, and you have to have wisdom. We always want to be honest, but I believe being honest doesn't mean that you are transparent and reveal everything, but you don't hide anything. You don't have to share with your competitors what your numbers are. You don't need to be honest. That's not honesty. That's stupidity.
Yeah.
But you should never be hiding something. And you have to look internally and see what that feels like. If you feel like you're hiding it, well, then you need to say it. And then on the other side of things, we need to be gracious with people, where it's like, and I'm learning this a lot lately in my role, I'm not involved in the day-to-day like I used to be. And so when things get in front of me or they come across my desk, they're usually a problem. And they're usually bigger than what they have been. And I have to have grace for people. It's like, because they're literally living out, I don't want them to tell me everything. But then I need to have grace and react and understand that, hey, they weren't being dishonest with me. They were doing their job, and through a series of unfortunate events, this is where we are. And they're having that conversation now. How do we get from here to there? And how do we do that? And I think that's really important, that we're always looking at that stuff, because it goes full circle. You know what I mean? It's like, you have to look at that when you're talking with people and being honest. And like which way you're talking about, being honest, whether you need this job or whatever, um, we have to at some point entrust ourselves to others a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
We have to relinquish some of that to other people. Otherwise, there is no relationship. It's very transactional then, and that's not what we want to be about.
No, we don't want to have a transactional relationship, whether it be with customers or employees.
Yeah.
I don't want it to be that you're going out there, you worked your 40, your 50, and you get your paycheck, and that's all it is. I mean, that's kind of empty.
Yeah. No, it is, and I think some of us that are a little older have experienced some of that. Well, Travis, we've been having so much fun here. I totally lost track of time and wanted to ask you, what's your one thing? I always ask people, what is something that you just cannot live without, that you need a tool or a piece of gear? What is your one thing?
Wow, one thing. Well, if you just said one thing I couldn't live without, it's not a tool, but I would say I always need something to chase or to hunt. That's something that within business that I just I like to build things and then turn them over to other teams to maintain. I'm not a maintainer.
Yeah.
And I think I'm always looking for that next thing to put my energy to and go after. But if it was a tool, it's kind
That's
of
interesting.
funny.
Your role at Dino probably makes that really enjoyable for you, because that's a lot of what you do.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, hunting the next account, hunting the next employee, next area manager,
Right.
the next ops manager, safety guy. It's just, or girl, and just being able to keep building and keep expanding and touch different parts of the U.S. with what we do. But if it was a tool, my F-150 is a tool that I probably can't deal without. But I'd say on a smaller scale, just for what we do and kind of brings it with what you do, it's electrical tape. I would say maybe electrical tape, because I use it for so many things. I play beer league hockey sometimes when I'm home and can do that and not traveling.
Whoa. You can't do that. You played what league hockey?
Beer league hockey,
You said
at
beer.
Twin Ponds up here.
Beer league hockey.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's what I call it. Adult league hockey is also good, but
Okay.
I use electrical tape to keep the hockey skates or socks up. Or
I have it in my first aid kit, actually.
Yeah, and then I have electrical tape.
It's great for cuts.
Explosives when you're priming dynamite, and you gotta keep the detonator in there. But I mean, it's just a great tool to have in your truck, and let's say electrical tape.
Specific color, like, because as an electrician, there's all different colors.
I've only ever used black.
I'll have to hook you up with some colored electrical tape.
There we go.
Yeah, yep, that's really cool. So tell me a little bit about, so it's Dyno Nobel.
Yes.
And how long have they been around?
Oh, probably since the invention of the safety fuse and things like that.
Okay.
So now Alfred Nobel, the Nobel Peace Prize,
Wow,
is part of.
That's the Nobel. Realize that.
Okay. So, so it dates back, way prior to the wampum origin.
A lot of people might find that interesting, that the Nobel Peace Prize is connected to explosives.
That's true. I mean, it is something that'll blow some people's minds.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's.
Sorry, he just said it will blow some people's minds. Yeah, you are full of the explosive humor here.
There we go.
Yeah.
There we go. But yeah, no, been around a long time. Some of the other manufacturers, like Austin Powder, they've been around, I believe, since 1833 is their hard hat sticker, and ever since. So
okay, that's pretty cool.
So it goes back a long time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And just continuing to build the industry. So why is Dyno Nobel involved in so many different explosive companies?
Well, I think it's something that's happening in a lot of industries right now, where there's consolidation. And whether it be that a family business doesn't have a next generation
Yeah.
that's got involved in the business and learned the business and is going to be taking it to the next generation.
Yeah.
So there's certain areas of the country where it was determined by past leadership or current leadership that it was best to go direct to the customer and
Right.
do all the work yourself. But due to risk in certain
Yeah.
areas and things, if you have somebody that's providing a great service to people, like
Yeah.
Main Drilling Blasting, like Wampum Hardware, like Buckley Powder, these are some of the joint ventures that we've partnered with, and for a long time, and they do great service. So why
Yeah.
not just support them and let them do more of what they do best?
That's really interesting.
So I mean, I think it's certain explosives companies have taken a different approach, and
Yeah.
who's to say which is the best one? But I think it's region by region, and I think the customers speak to who's doing the best
Yeah.
job with it. I mean,
Yeah.
if they are you're doing more business year after year, then I guess you're doing the right job. But if somebody else is starting to be more of the piece of the pie, then maybe you need to look at what they're doing and say, well, how can we get better?
So you talk about that there's a lot of gray hair in the explosives industry, which I'm working towards my gray hair. I'm starting with my beard and going up. I'm all right with gray hair as long as I don't have no hair.
Well,
But
I'm working on that,
you're
so it's
working
gonna
on
be
that.
yeah.
And you've made some comments. You have buzzwords that you use. I don't know if you know this, but like uh, explosive talk and words, everything that you say, it's like, we need more energy in our industry. And it's like, yeah, well, I'm thinking that that's something to do with your industry. But like, what is it that you are looking for in the sense of, are you just wanting young people into the industry? Are you just like, say I'm in my 40s
Mhm.
and I want to change careers and I'm thinking I'd like to blow stuff up.
Yeah. So I don't look at it as an age. I look at it as motivation.
Hmm.
If you have the motivation to get up in the morning, put on work boots, show up, do what you said you were going to do, and join a team and just become a part of the team. I think there's a lot of people that are in our industry that would teach, whether you're 50,
Right.
60, I mean, at 60 years old, people are working longer now than they ever have, I believe.
Yeah.
So, and whether that's because of a change in mentality, or if that's because there's a lot less of the pension programs at some of these companies that were around a lot decades ago, but they're working longer, and I think that's good for some of those people, and for like us, I have no problem hiring a 60-year-old person because they may work for another 6-7 years.
So
And
what
what's
do
the
you look for in that?
longevity at a company nowadays? Is it 2 years? Is
Uh,
it 5 years? Is it? I mean, it's gonna be very rare to
Yeah.
hire a college graduate at 22, 23, 24 years old and think that they're gonna retire with you.
Yeah. I
So
would
in
agree.
this business, you know, as things go, when you win accounts, you lose accounts. This construction project once that construction project is done, you move to the next one,
Yeah.
hopefully, and that might be an hour and a half away. So you're gonna have people that like, that's not for me. Okay, well, you were a great employee. Thank you for all your contributions. How can I help you get the next project or next
Right.
job? And it
Right.
might be with one of our competitors,
Right.
but we may get together in 5 years again and be like, yeah, you were great
Yeah.
on that project. Hey, I'm looking for an area manager. I'm looking for a safety director. I'm looking for these things. So I think it's about making your network larger
Yeah.
and not being so closed-minded to that we're going to share industry secrets and things, because we're not doing anything that's that different. We may have different call them standards or practices of how we do it
Right.
versus another company down the road, but it's really repeatability
Yeah.
and doing what you said you were going to do when you get a
Boy.
contract and
Yeah.
following through. And I think if you do that, you're going to have business repeat.
I think that you touch on something there. When when my partner and I had started in the electrical industry, our business, we were shocked at how when we would do what we said we were going to do, people were fascinated by that. Like, we would have people be like, "Wow, we want to work with you guys on the next job," and we're like, "Why?" Because we felt like we were so small, we didn't have any business doing what we were doing, and we probably didn't. But they'd be like, "Well, you said you would do this, and then you did that." And I'm like, wait a minute, that why is that shocking? And that comes back to the honesty statement. It comes back to grit, drive, all of those things, and it even comes back to hard work. It's like, listen, I, I think the thing that we need to remember is the importance of pay attention to what you say.
Yeah.
Don't speak so freely. Like when we get in trouble, it's when we talk freely and we're like, well, this is going to happen, and then this is going to happen, and this is going to happen. If you don't know, don't say it. you know and it's like, if you can be more clear. One of the hardest things that I had to learn, and when I did, it was game changing for me, was as a project manager to be in a meeting with the team of people and to be the guy that brings up the bad news,
Mm-hmm.
to be the guy that says, you know what, I know this is the schedule that you want, but that's not possible, and we're the reason that that's not possible, and here's why. But then when I would say something, people would believe it.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're going to have to say the bad with the good. You're going to have to say those things, but that's the only way that you can get to what you're saying there, is do what you say you're going to do. And I think that sums up what we're all looking for in team members to work on our teams, is people that are going to do what they say they're going to do.
Yeah, and don't overpromise. I mean,
Yeah.
and I think that's something that's helped myself. I've watched some other people, and I've gone to meetings with them when I was more of a junior to them, and listened to how they did things, because I was so willing to talk in
Yeah.
meetings, and probably talk too much
Yeah.
and get too emotional.
Yeah.
And then
Oh,
want
I've
to
been
be
guilty of
right,
that.
and want to tell somebody how no, that's, you're wrong, like this is what actually happened. But now learning, I listen a little bit more, but
Yeah.
my wife might not say that. But I think that's just something to learn as you mature in your industry or in business, is
Yeah.
to listen a lot more and not want to be right. I mean, there's a time and a place.
Yeah.
Um,
Honestly, if you listen more, you're at least going to look right more often. I mean, it's funny that you're talking about that. For me, that's probably one of my biggest things that I struggle with, is slowing my mind down so that I can listen, because it's like I always want to catch a problem before it's there. I want to deal with it before it gets bigger. I feel like it's a race sometimes, but slowing down and listening has been hugely, and honestly, the reason for me that I feel like I've gotten better at listening is it's saved me money. I mean, just to be clear. So, so as a young person, wanting to get into trades, as an old person wanting to get into trades, the thing that you're looking for is do what you say you're going to do. What are the practicals about how someone wants to get into the explosive trade? Like, how do they do that? Because, like you said, nobody even knows while we're rocking. This is yeah. Nobody even knows. I think where to go. Like,
Right.
Until I heard you talk on Dirt Talk, I knew nothing about Dyno Nobel.
Really?
Yeah, and I've been on multiple explosive projects.
Yes.
And I remember every single project because it was, as we said earlier, badass. So, yeah.
Yeah. So I would say, easy Google search. I mean, you may not want to be Google searching explosives too much, because then you might get on some blacklist or something like that people are watching. But you can go to my LinkedIn, Travis Martzall on
Okay.
LinkedIn. Whether you live in Wyoming or Alaska, Canada, whatever, I have some contacts. I'd love to get you into the business. If you're looking at, you can get into the mining schools.
Yeah.
And the different trade schools. I mean, we brought electricians in. Sorry to say, we do rob from the other industries as much as possible to fill our needs. But whether you're a bus driver
Yeah.
right now, all we need to do is get you hazmat tanker endorsement, and you can be working in the explosives
Wow.
industry. So I mean, we've found different avenues to fill our needs, and honestly, that's what we want. I mean, if you
Yeah.
can drive kids around and things like that, no matter your age,
Yeah.
I trust you to drive explosives.
Ooh, that's true. That's true.
And in our business, it's all, I really think it's all about trust. And when you hire Wampum Hardware or Dyno Nobel or whatever explosives company or drill blast company you're going to hire, you got to trust the person that's there selling it.
Yeah.
And they're not just selling it. Are they going to do what they said they're going to do? Because I have operations and sales. So I'm not just selling it like a used car salesman. Now, some of my past customers might say, "Oh, he's lying right now," because you had Matt Eshelman on here, so I did a lot of jobs with him. But it's about that trust. Like
Yeah.
they don't want to be on the news with me.
Boy,
You know,
that's the truth. Yeah.
and if you're gonna hire a company that I'm affiliated with or the people that are working with me, I it's all about trust. I can't put you out there if I don't trust you.
Yeah. Yeah. What is the coolest project that you've ever been on?
Coolest. I would say the Atlanta airport. About 3 years ago, we were delivering explosives and they were blasting beside. If anybody's ever been at the Atlanta airport, it's one of the busiest airports
Yes.
there is, and there's trains underneath the ground.
Yep.
So to move all the passengers, whether you're
Yeah.
going to rental cars or changing flights, we were blasting at night under the existing airport
Wow.
and helping do the new tunnel for
Not
adding
stressful
another
at all.
train track or there to move more passengers. So that was really cool. More recently, we were out in Colorado doing a specific job, the I-70 expansion, right there, right as you come out of Golden, Colorado, and it was called Floyd Hill. And it's just, that's the most recent one that's been really cool because you're up at an elevation where you can just feel it on your chest as you're
Yeah.
carrying the boxes and doing things. And it was just a neat project.
Every time that we've been on a project where we've been filming or something for blasting, that is one of the coolest things that you can put on the internet is an explosion. I mean, and when you watch blasting, I was telling you when I was an apprentice, one of my first jobs in a quarry. Quarries are so cool because they have high voltage electrical. They're blowing stuff up, and usually on the regular they're blowing stuff up.
Yeah.
And so I got to see it on projects done right, where it explodes and all the ground comes up in the air and it comes right back down where it is. Recently, a couple of years ago, I was on a project. I won't say the name of the company, but we actually were on a project and we were using our excavator and with a hammer trying to break the rock, and it was in a place where this rock was like very high in iron.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, in the Elizabethtown area here in
Ironstone
Pennsylvania.
boulders.
Yeah, ironstone boulders. They look like giant dinosaur eggs. And literally, we had a huge excavator with a giant hammer on it. I think as big as we could actually get on the job, and the hammer started to mushroom.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, "Oh my goodness!"
Got too hot.
And so the blasting company came out and they drilled for like, I don't know, it felt like 2 weeks. And they drilled all these holes, put it all in there, and then they covered the dirt. They filled it back in. Like we had it all dug out.
Mm-hmm.
They filled it back in. Then they put these giant mats on top of it. And then they put dirt on top of that yet. Like they knew something that I didn't know about this rock. And when it blew, the one section of mats, I guess the rock was more dense in that area than they thought.
Mm-hmm.
And so they had said, move the excavator over here. And this was the worst thing that's ever happened on a explosives job for me. And we had a drone up and we were filming it, and I got to watch one rock about this big fly all the way over here and just hit the excavator right through the windshield. Nothing else, just that one rock.
Yeah.
But
well, that just shows something else to touch on is when you have these blasting operations, lots of times everybody wants to come out like it's the groundbreaking ceremony, and all the white hats, hard hats come out, and it's not a spectator sport. It's we can send you the video now that we have drones and other things. Before drones, we had tripods, cameras, and we video all of our blasts. But it's just we can share that information with you, and you can get the thrill or just get back.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Travis, as we're sitting here and we're talking, and we're kind of going through these different things in the explosive industry. I just talked about, and that's a really interesting one to talk about because they did everything right. They didn't. They were very thorough. They did everything right, but it is still not perfect. You know what I mean? It's like you can't foresee every single thing that would happen. And I remember the guy that was in charge, the lead blaster. He felt horrible
Mm-hmm.
because I put the excavator where he told me to put it,
Mm-hmm.
and you could see it on the drone. I kid you not. It was like you could draw the arc, and but he had no way of knowing that. And the power and the energy, like those mats, I don't remember how much they weighed, but
10,000 pounds
10,000 pounds.
each.
And so they had mats on it,
Mm-hmm.
and they had dirt on top of it, and it still did that. And
Yeah.
so, and in the drone footage, the mats actually came up off the ground quite a bit. But anyway, all that to say, what is a mistake that you've made that you're willing to share with people that they might be able to learn from? Whether they're in the trades industry or not, what's a mistake that you've made that you're willing to share that might make a difference in someone else's life?
Well, making a difference in someone else's life. I was going to say that the first thing when you first said that, I was like, well, I've broken a lot of steel drilling. I'm one of the worst drillers there is. I haven't done it in a couple years now, and my current employer says stay away from the drills.
I was going to say that might be on purpose.
Yeah, that's a good one. But screw up, move up, I guess is what they say, right? But I would say, getting back to patience. I have no patience. I had a lot less patience when I was coming up through as an assistant manager and regional manager and things. And even when I got to some of those roles, I didn't have the patience. Wanted to speak before maybe I should have been speaking in certain larger meetings and things, and challenging some things that I maybe didn't fully understand the whole scope of. So I guess letting some of my emotions get to some of the situations in some of my early employment.
Yeah.
I think until you're in some of those roles that you have those responsibilities, you don't see the full picture. And I think patience, having a sense of urgency is great, but I didn't know how to fully manage it, I guess.
Yeah.
And letting my emotions kind of get into some of those decision making.
It's interesting that you say that. We're probably more similar than I'd like to admit, since we're talking about mistakes. But emotions are good because they drive passion, and you need emotion.
Mm-hmm.
You need that to care about people. You need that to do work, and that's something that can drive things. But without patience, like you're talking about, and controlling those emotions in a right way, they're really dangerous.
Yeah.
Quite honestly, a lot like explosives. They can be really effective, but if you don't do the proper things to control that explosion, it can affect things in a negative way. I remember speaking about mistakes, and just to share that with you, because it's not right for me to ask you to share that and me not share it. When I was early on in my career, I had a little bit of a reputation for throwing my hard hat. And I did not realize what that communicated to the team around me, to the client. It didn't look like I was in control. And in my job, I needed to be in control.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't look like I was in control because I wasn't. I wasn't dealing with my emotions of. I remember a particular job for a university. We had, wow. And I'm even talking about, as I look back on it and I digest it, we had been doing a site lighting project, and we pulled all this wire in, and I had misread the code, and so above a certain size, the wire needed to be a different color.
Okay.
And so we had pulled in a couple of miles of cable.
Wow.
And the inspector came out, and he looked at it, failed, and it was my first big job. I was in charge, and I talked with him, and I explained it, and I argued back and forth of it's the same size wire, and he's like, well, this is what the code says about this, and he was right. He was 100% right. And my young self did not realize how gracious he was being with me, because he took the time to listen to me when I was not maybe being as respectful as I should have been. And I'll never forget, he walked away and he left, and I chucked my hard hat across the road. I think it might have broke, but probably didn't. I just scuffed it up. Now I scuff them up so that they look dirty, so it looks like I'm out in the field.
Yeah.
But I chucked it across the road, and a young guy came up to me, and I was shocked at how that affected him. And I think that we're not always aware, when we get emotional about things, we're not always aware of who's watching.
Yeah, and you can take it home too. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, whether you're little kids or teenage kids or your wife, there's people that are affected by those things there too.
Absolutely. I think that I got a piece of advice from an old timer who ran a pretty big construction company in our local area here, and he had shared with me that he goes, when I go home, I'll stop about a block or two away from the house, and I'll sit in my truck for about 10 minutes, and I'll just sit there and decompress my day, so that when I open the door and I walk in and I see my wife and I see my kids, that all the stuff from the day is the first thing that I'm giving them. And I was like, so I started doing this. It sounded dumb to me. I'm like, that sounds dumb. But I started doing it. And my wife would say it's one of the best things that I've ever done, because I'm able to deal with all of that emotion, all of that stuff, so that I'm not pouring it out on them as I walk in the door, because they don't need any of that. They don't need me to bring that in the door. And once I've taken, and this comes back to what you said earlier about listening and patience, all of that. When you take the time, you're able to actually process things. When you react, you're not able to process them. You're doing just that. You're reacting. So
Yeah, and we think our jobs are so important, which I guess they are, because we have families that depend on us doing our jobs right, and
right,
they're trusting us to foster the business the way to have insurance for them and paychecks for them and jobs for our people to go do.
yeah,
But I don't know. It's just when we take that time to be patient before we get home, whether it be coming back from a flight or driving for 2 hours,
yeah,
and all the different things that happened. The equipment broke down. The customer was a jerk that day. Whatever. It rained, and now the job got canceled. Whatever. We open that door, whether it's our F-150 door or the front house
yeah,
door. Our wife, our kids also
yeah,
have things that they want us to hear.
yeah, yeah.
So I mean,
Yeah.
and you got to be ready to hear it.
You do. You do. I'm very blessed that even to this day, my kids still come to the door when I get home,
That's awesome.
and they're all older. And it's interesting. Some days they always want to know, "Hey, Dad, how's your day?" And it's like some days are really hard, and I'm always honest with them. But the importance of taking that time to communicate with them, and then be like, "Well, how was your day?"
Yeah.
Asking
that question.
Yeah, asking that question of them, and I think that that's an important thing for us to remember in the trades. Sometimes there can be a lot, because we're dealing with a lot of different things. We're dealing with a lot of different people, and the importance of thinking outside of ourselves about the person next to me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if my trauma and your trauma aren't different, even though they are different.
Mm-hmm.
What is really hard for you might not be really hard for me, but I'm going to experience something that's really hard that I need to deal with, and being able to process and get through that stuff is important. So, well, I really appreciate you floating up to the line with me here as we sit on the Susquehanna River
Yes.
across from, what was the name of the quarry again? You said it
Highway
earlier.
Materials.
Highway Materials. Across from Highway Materials. There was no blasting here this morning, so that's a little unfortunate. Probably as we're packing up and leaving. But as we end here and we come to a close, what are you doing? Where do you talked about your LinkedIn?
Mm-hmm.
Where would you encourage people to check things out when they Google and they go online? Dyno Nobel.
Nobel, Wampum Hardware, Buckley Powder.
Are any of these companies on Instagram?
Oh yeah.
LinkedIn, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's the major websites.
Okay.
The major website would be www.dynonobel.com, and they have a lot of career opportunities on there. Also, locally here, Penn State does a really good job with their mining program.
Yeah.
You can just Google search mining engineering degrees, things like that. And also Penn Tech, I don't know what they call it now anymore, up in
Yeah, Penn Tech
Williamsport.
College, yeah.
Yeah, and that was a great place to go for gaining some talent.
Yeah.
And it's whether you have no degree, 2-year degree, 4-year degree, masters. I mean, there's a place in the explosives industry for you. I mean, we're looking for chemists. We're looking for IT people as well. I mean, we're doing things now with technology that I never thought would be
Yeah.
in the industry. Wireless detonators. I mean, who would
Wow.
have thought that would be
That's a whole
thing?
nother podcast there, wireless detonators.
Oh yeah,
But yeah,
it's crazy.
that's
But
insane.
I mean, like I said, it's if you're have an interest in the explosives industry, we'd probably have a position for you.
So, and you are looking for young people, old people, but you're looking for some people that want to learn the industry to be coming into the industry.
Yeah, and when you get into this industry, like I said before, and I won't beat the dead horse here, but you can get into actual operations where you're
Yeah.
deploying the explosives. You can get into manufacturing. You can get into logistics. You can get into regulatory and compliance. Okay, and some of our best regulatory and compliance people that now work for the state DEP were actually blasters at one point
Yeah.
in our industry and worked for Wampum Hardware, worked for Main Street Blasting. So those are some of the best people because they understand what's going on.
That
Versus coming out of college and just going right into a position and you're just pushing paper.
Yeah.
And I think that's one thing with the trades is you get the respect before you go to those positions as a manager, as a director of a company, even HR. I mean, it would be great to have some HR people that knew what the field was going through.
Yeah.
And you want this signed and you need to see me, but like maybe come out and see me in the field and I'll, let's get it done there.
I think that's one thing, my dad had said to me when I was young, learn a trade first. And he said, and I recently heard someone say, work for different companies in the trades, get experience to see what it is. And that's the thing that I think that if you're a young person and you're wanting, you have to remember, it's not fair for us to say to you at 17 and 18, well, do you have your life figured out? That's not fair.
I'm 42 and I don't have my life figured out.
Exactly. That's my point. But the point is, if you get out there and you start doing stuff, that experience, don't be worried that you're going to be doing this for the rest of your life or that for the rest of your life. You might end up on a podcast someday when you started with a screwdriver, and you started with your boots in the dirt, and it's like, and now you're managing teams and operations, and you're sitting on podcasts. It's like, do the work, get the experience, and it will make you better at your job, and it's something that you can take with you no matter where you go.
And I just want to make sure that this is out there. Is I wouldn't be sitting here. And I don't know all your background, but you wouldn't be sitting there. Some of the other people that I saw sitting on this podcast in the past here with Matt Eshelman and Keaton Turner and some of the other guys that I know, is they wouldn't be there without the people that poured into them and helped them. I mean, they have these big companies that they're running, and I wouldn't be sitting here if I wouldn't have had some lessons learned for some really good people in the industry that took the time and the patience, even when I was maybe a little bit of a jerk in my early parts of my career and said, wait, just calm down. Hold on.
Yeah.
I'm going to take you with me to this meeting. I'm going to show you why this is this way.
Yeah.
There's so many people that all of our stories have wrapped up in where we're at today.
Yeah.
Even good, bad employees, other things. I mean, you just learned how to deal with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that's the point is we all have to deal with it. And the only way to learn is to get out there and get started.
Yeah.
So, well, Travis, thank you for stepping up to the line. I appreciate it.
Appreciate it, buddy.
All right. There we go. We're out. Let me guess, the batteries died about, 20 minutes ago.